Great. Well, hey guys, what's up? Eric Beer here at Lead Gen Millionaire. Today we're going to be talking about the publisher discovery call. So we're going to dive in right now. Let's do it. Are you ready? All right, cool. All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about the publisher discovery call. This is where you're getting on with different people that are going to help you with driving traffic. These are the people that have your audience. These are the people that have the people coming to their handles, their email list, whatever we're going to be finding them, their podcasts. And they're going to be the people you want to get your offers in front of. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand everything about this publisher, trying to qualify them that they're the right people for us, understand the metrics from a numbers perspective, and then try to do a deal. Okay, so let's gather information from publishers, see if we want to arbitrage the media from them and make sure that it will be profitable for us and work for everybody else. So here are a few of the questions we should be asking. Sweet. All right, so what type of traffic do they have? Now, publishers could be anybody that has an audience. Remember that, right? So when we're talking about what type of traffic they have, it's where are they on the internet? So an email list is somebody that's subscribing to a newsletter, right? A text community would be somebody that would have an SMS text community, be able to blast out some messages through SMS, right? Co-registration is when someone's signing up to go through somebody else's flow and they're sharing that data with advertisers as they're opting in. Exit pops, social media followers, push notifications, link outs, media buyers doing actual media buys for you on your behalf, fronting the money for you. Display on blogs and websites, telemarketing calls, offer walls, and many, many more things. Podcasts, YouTube channels. There's so many different opportunities and ways that you can get your offer in front of people. But bottom line is we need to understand who it is that we are talking to and what types of traffic they have, okay? The other questions that we're going to ask are, who is their audience, okay? We want to understand who is their followers. Are they relevant for your offer, right? Do they have a breakdown of the demographics, meaning male, female? Do they have kids? Are they married? What's their household income? Do they own a home? All these things we want to try to understand as much as we possibly can to try to get a gauge on if this is going to be the right audience for your offer. Okay, right? Remember, you are with the advertiser, you already figured this out. So now you're just trying to make a match. What kind of offers convert well? What's working for you? So we want to understand what they're doing today, how they're promoting and monetizing their audience today. What are they sending out to their audience? What are they showing their audience? What's performing well? We're trying to get an idea as much as possible, is our offer going to work? Okay. We want to know, what are they selling their traffic for? If I want to send an email, what are they going to charge me to send an email to their audience? So here's where we're trying to figure out, how do they work? Do they charge on a CPM, CPC, CPL, CPA, rev share? There's all different types of models that you can buy traffic with a publisher, and you're just trying to get a gauge on how they sell their inventory to the marketplace. So are you willing to work on a performance basis, CPC, CPM? So when we're working with pubs, we want to know, are they someone who's willing to send out an offer on a CPL where they only get paid when they send out an email, someone clicks, lands on the lander, and then actually fills out the form? Or do they need to get paid when they send out an email, they show the creative, somebody clicks, or they want to get paid on a CPM, which means they're getting paid on impressions. So they send out whatever amount of emails, they're getting paid for that, and they charge on whatever CPM, and that's what you're going to pay. Typically, the way it works is on a performance basis, you're taking less risk. On a CPM, you're taking more risk. CPC, the risk is, medium. Both sides are taking some risk. So, it just depends on how you're going to structure this deal. We can't hear you.
Okay, I was going to say, before we move forward, I just wanted to make sure that people just understand that before we move on to the next thing, like the difference between CPC and CPM, just on a general level, because obviously you're going to get more into it and how to figure out the media math later. But does everyone here understand what that means? Does Eric need to elaborate more on what those acronyms like stand for and what they actually mean? Let me know in the chat box.
And if you don't, the good news is we're doing that in the next module.
And we are, but I mean, just I'm talking about just like conceptually, you know what I mean? Like, hey, just on a general level, you're gonna get into it more detailed as well. Everyone wants it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so everybody gets it, right? So cost per lead, cost per click, cost per thousand. So we want to know if they're running anything similar to their offer that I'm running. We want to get an idea of whatever they're doing today. Is this something that makes sense for me and my offer, right? And this is me just going to a publisher and asking them, based on what our own research, we should be signing up for their email list and seeing what they're doing anyway. So we probably have a better idea of what they're doing before they even tell us. But we're always asking questions, trying to get as much information as we possibly can to get a good idea of what they're doing, and also to see like how forthcoming these people will be with you, right? Some of them are going to give you everything and work with you and be amazing partners. Others are going to be really just close to the chest and not tell you anything. And that gives you an idea of like what kind of relationship you're going to be able to build with this person. You want to know if they're running all these things, because if they're running things that are similar to offers you're promoting, then it's telling you that it's working, right? So you should be excited about that. And now you're coming in to get your offer in front of these people, and hopefully you outperform your competitors, and then you take over all that traffic. But there is room for both of you anyway. So we want to gather all this information about what kind of media they have to offer. What do I get to pay for it? I want to know what it's going to cost me. I want to get just all this information. So really it's just, who are they? Who's their audience? What types of traffic do they have? What are they charging for this traffic? All these things, so we can determine if this media buy is worth testing and if it's going to be profitable for me and my advertiser. Okay, so you guys, does anybody have any questions on what we need to ask a publisher in regards to the things that are needed to get an idea of if this is someone that's worth our while or not?
I was also going to say, so in the membership portal, we actually have all of the questions that we just kind of covered in a worksheet. So you can go download it. I think it's already there. If it's not, we already created it and it'll be there by the end of the day. But I believe it's already in there. You can just download it so you have a sheet where you can ask all those questions and just fill it in, because you need those questions for us to get into the next section.
Yeah. So, the thing here is that when you guys are dialing on this stuff, right, what you want to do is you want to pick a certain media type first when you're doing your Dream 100 to find people and focus on a specific area. So the more you know about where your people are congregating, the more you can dial in on those types of publishers. Okay. And I will give you a little secret on something I've been playing around with recently. Who here is using the AI and the Chat GPT? Is anybody here doing that? I know you are. But has anybody else been playing around with that? Because I'm just like scratching the surface with it, and I find it really, really powerful. It's really about the right questions that you ask, and you're able to get at least a good amount of information to get you started on what you're going to be doing in regards to what do you call it? Where you're going to be going to find new publishers and things of that nature. So, I started playing around with it and doing it through like business and finance. I did it just earlier when we were talking about organic fertilizer, right? And within a few minutes, I literally have almost like 25 to 30 different email lists that I can start with to start looking at, to get an idea of like, all right, who am I looking at? Organic fertilizer. So first started asking around like, all right, what are there email newsletters focused around organic fertilizer? So then they spit out a bunch of things for me, right? That got me started with organic gardening, the organic farmer. This newsletter is geared toward farmers who use organic methods to grow crops and raise livestock. I don't know how big the list is. I don't know if you can market to or not, but at least it's going to get me started with looking at that. So I'm going to start diving in on these lists and see what's happening. And then I'm also going to start working from those lists and branch off from there, right? So like in casting, I'm happy to give this all to you and show you guys all of what I've come up with. Then the second question I asked was, give me the demographics of the dream customer for someone that's going to be buying organic fertilizer. And it started giving me some information here, telling me the types of people that would potentially be our dream customer. So then what I did was I started taking these different people, these different types of demographics that they gave me. So urban gardeners, home gardeners, and hobby farmers, health conscious individuals, environmentally conscious individuals, millennials and Gen Z consumers, right? All these things. And I started then diving into like asking the question, show me home gardener email newsletters. And then they spit out 9 to 10 of them. Show me organic food newsletters, another 8 to 10, right? Landscaping email newsletters. And, as I start doing this, and this, honestly, I spent probably 5 minutes doing this, just being able to like pump them in. And I got all this information that's getting me started with a good core concept of like all of the publishers that I have. And now I'm going to start I would go look it up, see what's up. Do they have a media kit on their site? How many people do they have? If they do, how are they selling their list? Okay. Things like that. Plus I would probably go in, and if I start finding some like, some of them were like, Better Homes and Garden, right? That's a big one. They're owned by, I think Hearst. Right? Food Tank, things like that. I would then start to look and say, show me similar newsletters that are like Better Homes and Garden, maybe magazines, all those types of things. And like literally within like, an hour, you're probably going to have 50 to 100 different publishers that you now have a target list to go after and see if you can communicate with some of those people, spend some time going after it, and then trying to get your offer placed, right? And now we got to try to understand, what are they doing? How are they selling their media? What's the cost for us to send? And then what we're going to do is we're going to model that out, which is what the next module is here. We're going to go over the media math and show you guys how to do that and get into some of the numbers, which is really more of the fun part of this business, because at the end of the day, we're not guessing. This is just math, right? And over time, as you guys start testing things here and there, and you start to really get a good vibe on what your offer does, how it converts, you can get a better idea of who it's going to work for. You might be willing to take more risk because of the fact that you have a good idea of how it's going to perform, and you're going to crush it. So does anybody have any questions on this? If you do, write them down. But so, just in conclusion, what you want to do is you want to kind of focus on some of these different types, whether it's, email, newsletters, podcasts, YouTube channels, Facebook groups. And we've laid out a bunch of them on what you should be looking for and how you go about it. And they'll be in the worksheets. So, normally what I'd like to do is you start with one, and then you own that category. And then you just continue to like build that up, and then you move on to the next, so that you're not like falling all over the place, right? And as you start testing, as things are working, that's when you start to really dive in. Once you see something that's working, then you just replicate exactly what you just did a lot more times, and you make a lot of money. So everybody good with that? You guys all get that? I mean, pretty straightforward. Questions are in the membership area. If you guys aren't clear on what to do, ask us. But yeah, I mean, AI prompts, asking the right questions, building up lists, and then just, literally doing like outreach to get in touch and see who's willing to run what, diving in, signing up for those newsletters, seeing what they're marketing, doing like a serious amount of research. You're really just hacking what they're doing. So it's really powerful. I wish I had this 20 years ago, but better late than never for you guys. It's gonna be awesome. So, all right, are we good here? If we are, we can move on to the media math. Yeah, are there any questions? Anything that we need to answer? No? All right, cool. All right, so then if you guys are all good with this, then you go all good with starting with media math, dive in there.
And Eric, make sure to do an intro for this.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole new lesson. You know what I mean? So like, hi, I'm Eric Beer. It's like, hi, I'm Eric Beer, and today we're going to be talking about media math on Lead Gen Arbitrage Millionaire.
I love it. How do you do it again? Can you do it again?
Hello, I'm Eric Beer.
That's so funny. Oh, man. All right. You guys good? You ready? Let's rock. All right, what's up, guys? Eric Beer. Today we're going to be talking about media math on lead gen arbitrage trading here. We are going to crush this thing, so let's get started. We're going to be talking today about what can I afford to pay per lead on a cost per lead offer. Okay, so I'm going to go over what the math is on if you can run an offer and be profitable. You want to know how profitable it can be. You will also need this information so that you can then go and have an educated conversation with publishers who want to promote your offer. So first, let's go over some basic terminology, okay? CPM is cost per thousand, okay? What that means is impressions. You are paying on an impression. So they usually talk about this in 1,000. So $5 CPM is what somebody would say, which means that if you were going to go and market to a list of 1 million names, well, that would cost you $5,000. And we'll talk through some of the formulas later. Plus, I have a worksheet that we can show you in addition to something else, a little bonus thing that we might give you that'll be fun for you to play around with. But so RPM is your revenue per thousand. So CPM is what it costs. Revenue per thousand is how much money you're making for every 1,000 impressions that you see. So if someone's sending out your offer and then you're seeing, you got 1 million impressions, then you generated $10,000 in revenue, that would back out to $10 revenue per 1,000. The way you do that is you take the million, divide it by 1,000, you multiply it, divide it by the revenue, and you get the $10. So CPI is your cost per impression. So instead of it being per 1,000, it's for every single impression. So it's the same thing as doing it in regards to, let's say, if you have $100 revenue per 1,000 or a cost per 1,000, on a cost per impression, then that $100 on a cost per 1,000 would be 10 cents for an impression. So ultimately, you just take 1,000, multiply it times the 10 cents. Okay, so that's how you get that. Revenue per impression, same thing, same concept, but instead of it being what costs you, it's the revenue that you're generating. Okay, CPC, that is what it costs for you to get a click. So if you're buying a click on Google or you're buying a click on Facebook, you will be charged on a CPC. That means that when a consumer comes and clicks on one of your ads, you pay. Whether they sign up for your form or not, doesn't matter. It's on a CPC. And typically what you want to do is when you're doing this and running your media in this fashion, you want to back it out to what are you making on a revenue per click. So the next thing here should be RPC, and that's going to show you how much money you're making when you're generating a click, or EPC, same thing. Earnings per click, revenue per click, same thing. So we have both up here. They'll use it in different ways, but we just want you guys to see it so you're not confused if someone's like earnings per click and you're like, well, I learned RPC, right? So cost per lead, you guys understand what that means. We've been talking about it for a while. It means you're getting what your cost is to acquire the lead. Revenue per lead is how much revenue you're generating for every lead that you're generating. What is it backing out to on the back end? Cost per acquisition is how much it's going to cost you to acquire a customer. CPA. CPS is the cost per sale. Very similar to a cost per acquisition. You can find people talking about it in different ways, but CPA, CPS, for the most part, are very similar things, but you should know both. Okay, revenue per sale is what you're generating on every sale, what you're generating in revenue. So that's what's going to you. That's the good guys. So it's what the cost of media is versus what you're making on the sale that you're generating. Okay. So in the advertiser discovery call, we found out what the payable action is. So when we're getting an offer, as a reminder, a payable action is how the advertiser is defining what the user needs to do for you to have a conversion that is payable to you. So as an example, an advertiser might say the user has to start the quiz and complete it, then fill out the name, email, mobile, and when they click submit, that is the payable action. So as you're going through and you're working with these advertisers, you want to define what the actual payable action is so there's no misunderstanding. And then when you're doing your deal with the publisher, you're passing that along and you're being very specific on when you're going to pay them at. and it has to align with whatever you've agreed with the advertiser. You're going to do the same thing. So next, we're going to start getting on calls with these publishers. We want to find the publishers and the advertisers that can promote our offers, right? So what we need to figure out in our media math is we need to know that everyone involved achieves their goals. So advertiser needs to get a lead that's going to convert into a sale. The publisher needs to make money on the media that you're buying, and it needs to make sense for them. Us as brokers need to make money in the middle. And the fourth one is the consumer has to be happy, right? So we can then have an educated call with our publisher in the next phase of this lead gen arbitrage model, okay? So here's a little equation that we have here for the media math. And this is to figure out what you can pay for a publisher. And I did a worksheet. Am I going to share this here? Or am I going to share it?
Yeah, actually, so after we're done with this, then we're going to go to your worksheet, and then you can actually fill it out, and we can give them the worksheet too, so that they can fill it out themselves.
Okay. Are we doing that here or on Zoom?
Yeah, maybe we should do that on Zoom, actually. Let's do it on Zoom, because then we can kind of come up with pretend scenarios and that sort of thing.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna go through this pretty quickly then, because then I'll show you on the spreadsheet. But ultimately, right here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out what we can pay per publisher. And there's a few ways we can do this, right? The first way, the simple way, is we want to know what the payout from the advertiser is that we're getting paid. So let's pretend like we're getting paid $10. And then your desired margin of what you want to work on. Let's say we want to work on 30% margins. So then what you do is you take what the payout is, the pay-in that you're getting, and then times the desired margin to figure out what you're going to be making. So in this scenario below, when you do 10 times 30%, it's $3 that you're going to be making on every lead. So when you do that, if you want to figure it out based off of what it is from the actual pay in from the advertiser, you're going to multiply the action times the margin. And then what you do is just subtract it from the top line, right? So, and I want to be clear here because I made a mistake when I did this. So back up. When we do this, and I'll edit this out, when the advertiser's paying us, we call that the pay in. When we pay to the publisher, that's the payout, okay? So that it's very clear. The pay in is, let's say, $10. The payout, let's say, is $7, okay? So in this scenario, when we go to the next slide, payout from the advertiser, $10. If we want to work on 30% margins, then 10 times 30% is $3. The margin from the payout. So what we do is we take that 10, subtract it by the 3, and our allowable for us to work on 30% margins is we're going to go look to see if we can go get traffic for $7 for every lead for this offer that we're promoting.
Now, Justin asked, is 30% your standard target margin for CPL?
Yeah, typically, I mean, the way I operate when I'm doing things in from a margin perspective is two things. One is it depends on how much risk I'm taking, and it also depends on how much budget I have, okay? If I have a lot of budget, I don't need to work on such high margins because I can make it up on the volume. Versus if I have small budgets, I'm gonna look to use the margin to my advantage and yield as high as possible, or it may not be very exciting to me. So as an example, if someone has a $10,000 budget, I might try to work on 30 to 50% margin so I can make $3 to $5 grand. If I'm working on 10% margin, I'm making $1,000. It's not very exciting for me, right? So at the same time, if you told me that that advertiser gave me a $500,000 budget, and the only way I could get traffic is if I was working on the 10% margin, I would do it. I'm still making $50K a month, right? $50K a day, whatever that is. So, in that scenario, it really depends on that. The other thing in regards to margin is, for me, it's all based on how much risk I'm taking. So the more risk I'm taking, the more margin I feel like I should be able to make, right? The less risk I'm taking, then it's an easier deal, and I don't really need to be making as much margin in that scenario if someone else is willing to take the risk. However, of course, we're capitalists here, so we're going to try to make as much margin as we possibly can. At the same time as, listen, you make as much as you can make, right? That's the bottom line, but you do it in a way where you can still generate traffic for your advertiser and do right by your advertiser, okay? As long as you're doing right by your advertiser, make as much money as you possibly can. So once we figure out what we can afford, now we need to see if it will work for the publisher. So typically, when you look at publishers, they're going to back things out into some CPM. They want to know what they're making for every impression that they see. There's games you can play when you work on a CPC or a CPL, but they're always going to back it out to, I showed it to 1,000 people. What did I make on those 1,000 people? What do I normally make on those 1,000 people? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is just the math that they will run. So let's say an advertiser has let us know that the offer typically converts between 5 and 20%. And I did something on the spreadsheet that I'll be able to show you guys, and it'll be a lot easier for you to see once I show you these numbers. What we're doing is we'll just pull 1,000 clicks, and it really doesn't matter at this point. It could be random. You could pick 1,000 clicks. You could buy, 100,000 clicks. It really doesn't matter. And what we're doing is then we're multiplying it times the 5%, 10%, 15%, 20% to come up with some number of leads that we're going to generate for every 1,000 clicks that we see. Okay. So in a scenario like this, if you see that we get 1,000 clicks at 5%, that means that we're going to generate 50 leads. Right? In that scenario, we're paying them $7 per lead, right? Like we talked about earlier. So what you do is you take 50 times 7. Now the payout to the publisher is going to be $350. Whereas if the conversion rate is higher on this list at 20%, where they're telling us it can be, then we're going to generate 120 leads at the $7 per lead. And that payout is going to be $840. So using the formula, we know that the total you may be paying a publisher is going to be anywhere from $350 to $840 in the total gross payout to the publisher. Okay. So when we're looking at this, we're also looking at what the value per click is going to be. Okay. So on the low end at the $350, then it's going to back out to 35 cents a click on those 1,000 leads. If you generate $840 on those 1,000 leads, then it's backing out to 84 cents a click. So when we're talking to these publishers and they're trying to tell us what they typically see when they send out emails, and they're telling us that they see anywhere from like 30 to 45 cents a click, well, then you can have a conversation with them based on the conversion rates that you're projecting, that depending on how the quality of their audience responds to your offer, the average that you're seeing from the other publishers that are running traffic to this advertiser, anywhere from 35 cents on the low end all the way up to 84 cents on the high end. So we are in that area of what can work for this pub, right? And if we outperform, if it does back out to that 50, 60, 70 cent EPC, they're going to love you and they're going to want to run a shitload of traffic for you. And it's going to work and you're going to make money, right? So once we figure out what we can afford, now we can have a conversation with these publishers. We can discuss the publishers in what does it say? We will discuss these publishers' conversations in one of the next lessons. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to summarize this on the lead gen arbitrage model. So what we do first, we find the offer you want to promote, get all the information from the advertiser about the offer. You do all the media math based on the information that you got from your advertiser, and then you apply those numbers to your media math worksheet to then be able to go have conversations with publishers out in the marketplace to get an understanding of what they have available, what inventory they have available, what their inventory is worth to them, what it's going to cost you, and if you think, based on the projections that you have, if the offer is worth testing with that publisher. And these are just a constant testing and testing and testing in the marketplace. And by doing so, when you do that, ultimately you're gonna have some that are gonna back out and they're gonna be amazing. Some of them are gonna not perform to where you need to be. And then there's those conversations of what you're gonna do at that point on optimization. So I created a media math calculator that I'm gonna show you that you can calculate everything for yourself. And we're gonna take a look at that. In addition to that, I also created an ad calc, what would you call it, a subscription that I never rolled out, but I did it, that I'm gonna give you guys, I'm gonna show you guys it, and you guys can choose if you want to have access to it or not. I think it's a value, just whether you have it or not or use it, but it was something that we started doing and we're charging for it, and I want to give this guys to you as a bonus for free for you to play around with it and see if you like it. And if you guys, if it's helpful and it works, then, maybe we can dive in and keep doing more where we'll start to develop it. But it was a media calculator that I created a while back that I thought would be useful to people in scenarios like this that I'd love to give to you guys. So in conclusion, for this module, everything about the lead gen R model is just making sure all 4 people involved will win when you run traffic. The customer needs to win. The publisher needs to win, the advertiser, and you. And what that means is when you're out there buying traffic, you need to understand the math involved. The advertisers, if they're paying you on a lead, it needs to back out to what their cost per sale allowable is. On the publisher side, when they're running traffic to your offer, whatever they're used to making, you need to make at least what they're making or more for them to be happy and continue to run your offer. And there needs to be a middle there between what the advertiser is paying and what you're paying out to the publisher so that you are making money and you're profitable. And of course, the consumer needs to get a product or service that works for them, that solves their problem. And when those 4 things come together, you have a very, very successful campaign. And now it's time to just get more volume to that offer and replicate it with more publishers. So once you've had a model where all 4 people in the lead gen space win, you will have a very successful lead gen business that you will be able to scale by literally just doing the exact same thing. Okay? So are there any questions before we dive into the media calculator? How long will a typical campaign last? I got some that have been running for 5 years. I got some that will run for 6 days. It really depends. The ones that work, they can go on for a long time. And typically, as long as it's working, they normally won't stop unless something in their business changes or they sell the business or the business goes out and then you lose the deal. But if you work your butt off to get it to a place where it's working really well, I've had deals that have run for 5, 6, 7 years. And as long as you continue to service your advertiser, you can't just put up deals and then just sit there and not do anything. You got to hustle and continuously add value to what they're doing. But still, at the end of the day, those publishers are yours, right? They don't know where you're getting traffic, right? And whether you choose to tell them or not is your choice. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, and we can get into that in a later date. However, it's your job to find the pub. They don't know who the pub is, so they need you, and they'll always need you. And as long as it's continuously backing out to them, they'll buy traffic all day long. So it could be a really long time. That's the whole point of when you could be sitting on the toilet and making money, right? Is that you work your butt off, and then you're now like making money while these deals are running, and then people are clicking, they're signing up for things as we're sitting here doing this training. You're making money all day. The internet does not sleep. It's global. It's beautiful.
All right, we have a few questions. Troy asked, can you give an example of a specific arrangement that you set up with a publisher?
Yeah. So, okay. So when you say an arrangement, you're talking about a media buy? Because there's really 2 things that come to my mind when you say that. When I'm doing a media buy, what I'm doing is I'm ultimately reaching out to publishers to see if they're interested in running my offer, and I'm doing exactly what I just showed you. If I'm getting paid $10 a lead, I'm figuring out what I want to go to the market with, and then I go out and I try to promote that with that payout in mind. So if I'm getting paid $10 and I want to make 30%, I'm going to go out and say, I'm going to pump the offer on, hey, are you interested in running my tax debt offer? This is the offer. It's a first page submit. They're looking for first name, last name, email. After they do that and they click submit on that first page submit, that's the payable action. When they do that, I am willing to pay you $7 per lead. Are you willing to run this? They may ask me, what is the conversion rates? What do you typically see? And then I should have those numbers on my side. So like they're trying to model it out themselves, right? They may already be running some tax debt offers and they already have these numbers in mind. So they know, hey man, I'm already getting paid $5. So this guy's paying $7. If it converts anywhere near what we're doing today, then we're going to run it and test it. And if it works, we can really do a tremendous amount of volume. So those are the kind of conversations you have. The other arrangement that you can do, and this is a little bit more risky, is where you will guarantee to buy media from a publisher upfront so that you then control that media for a period of time. And then you can bring whatever offer you want to the table. But for this scenario, what we're doing here is we're doing it just in the ARB. We're not going to risk any money using our own money. We're just going out and we get somebody to run our offer on the CPL. Okay.
Lacey asked, are the payouts from the advertiser monthly?
So the payouts that the advertiser paying you or the pay in to you is, it starts off monthly. But so what happens is, and I'll show you guys this in models as we continue on, where they have an allowable on the back end. So for example, on a tax debt offer, okay, if they're paying out $10 per lead, they essentially have a goal on what they want to do for every person that buys their product in the back end. Okay. So as an example, they might be looking to back it out to $1,000 for every sale, which means they want to spend $1,000 for every time they get one sale, right? So if they're paying me $10 a lead, then you take that $10 and you divide it by 1,000. Okay. So what is that? $10 divided by 1,000 is what? 100? So that would be 100 leads. Is that right? I think so. So it would be 100. So on 100 leads, they better close one person that signs up for their tax debt offer, which will be a 1% conversion rate, right? Which is, it sounds crazy, guys, but like massive successful businesses online will convert 1 to 3% and they'll be worth $500-700 million, right? That means like 97% of the leads they're buying, they're not closing. That's how massive this is. That's how crazy this is, right? And then ultimately, it's just a matter of numbers. So if they start off at $10, right, and let's say they are able to close 2 sales on those 100 leads, well, guess what? The value, remember we talked about earlier, the revenue per lead. The revenue per lead started off as $10, but now if you go and you look, if they're doing it at $1,000 per sale and they have 2 sales, that means that they just generated $2,000, right? So if you take those $2,000 and you divide it by the 100 leads, they technically can afford to pay you $20 a lead. So in that scenario, your increase should go higher on what you're getting paid per lead, right? And if you're doing true ups on a monthly basis, which is the way you should be doing it, you always want to make it work for the advertiser, and that's how you keep this relationship long term. So it can move up and down, always. As long as you can figure out what's going on in the back end as you're generating those leads and you're keeping an eye on it. That's the thing with this business, is like people are like, I spent $50,000 and figured out the business didn't work. And you're like, what? Like $50,000? You could spend $500. You spend $1,000 to figure out if something's working. And if it doesn't work, you turn it off. You're spending 50 grand to figure out it doesn't work. You don't know anything about this business. Okay. Like that's the beauty of direct marketing. It's like you run some clicks somewhere, you see what happens, and then you make some decisions based on you analyzing that data. And there could be a number of reasons why it didn't back out. It could be the offer didn't convert. It could be that the audience was not the right audience. It could be a number of different things. It could be the creative. It could be the landing page. There's just the numbers will tell a story as you look at them. Once you get a baseline, where you'll be able to look and see. Once you're running an offer and you see, you'll have an expected click rate, an expected conversion rate, right? You're going to have an idea of what the lead should convert on the back end. Once you have those numbers and you've been working with somebody for a while, you'll be able to see up front where it failed and then be able to dial in on what went wrong, right? So like you can look and all of a sudden like everything looks good on the back end conversion, everything looks good on the lead conversion, but the conversion on the clicks was lower. Well, then something was weird with the creative. So it's like that. And then what happens is it'll change. So yeah, it changes.
Okay, so next question. Can you typically have the same campaign over several media types when you find one that works very well?
Absolutely, yes. As in, you could run traffic in email, you can run traffic in Facebook, you can run traffic on YouTube, wherever your people are hanging out, right? Different people consume content in a different way, right? Some people listen to a podcast, some people read a blog, some people watch YouTube. They're all over the place.
Lacey asked typically how many publishers we would have to speak with before we find the right publisher.
Okay, so it's math. You just have to qualify them to the best of your ability to make sure that it looks good, that if you were working for somebody, if you were working for me and you were spending my money, I'd want you to come into my office and say, hey, Eric, I found this publisher. This is the amount of people they have on their email list. This is what they're charging for me to send emails. This is the conversion rate that we're expecting to see. this is what we're looking to do based off of what we're going to get paid on the lead. So I'm expecting this much revenue, give or take. It's going to cost me this much to get that traffic. So we're going to be profitable by 35 to 50%. And you show me those numbers and you show me the logic on how you're about to go and test something, then it makes sense, right? So, you won't know until you test it. And that's why we always start off with some test budgets, right? You don't just say, hey, go send $100,000 in traffic. You don't do that ever, right? You start off with some test budget that you're comfortable with, that they're willing to do. Sometimes they'll be like, well, I'm not going to run your offer for $500. It's not exciting to me. I'll do it at $2,500 as a minimum. Okay, so you need to decide, are you willing to take that chance or not? And if you do, you're going to run traffic to it. You're going to see how it performs, and then you're going to adjust from there. You might go up, you might go down, it might stay the same. So in that respect, yeah, you want to just continuously working with publishers. If you work with 10 publishers a month, if you can make one work out of the 10 and 9 fail, that one publisher could pay you for 24 to 36 months. Just continuously working month in, month out. They're going to pay for all of the losses on the 9 that you tested. So you're always just trying to test as many publishers as possible, but it's got to align with you to make sense.
So George has 2 questions. I'm going to put them together. So the media math is used for CPS and pay-per-click, correct? And then he said, does every publisher always only think in terms of CPL?
Okay, so media calculator is used for everything, not just CPS and CPL. Media calculator is used for everything. Every single model that we talked about earlier, when you're going through revenue per impression, cost per impression, revenue per impression, revenue per thousand, cost per lead, cost per sale, all of those things, EPCs, RPCs, CPC, everything's math. So it's not just those 2 things. Everything's math. You can even continue on when you start, if people have call centers, if people are sending traffic to a challenge and then it's a free challenge and then they're trying to get the person on the back end 5 days later to book a call and then get onto that call and then see if they close there. All of it's math. You can work backwards from the end and go and literally come up with what they can afford on a click, what they can afford on an impression, what they can afford on a lead from all of these numbers by just doing the math. So it's everything, okay? And publishers will work on different models. So it depends on who you're talking to. For example, if you go buy traffic from Google, you pay on a click, right? PPC, pay per click, CPC, cost per click, same thing. So in that scenario, you're ultimately paying on a click, and you can't negotiate with Google. They're too big, right? You can go to Facebook, you can buy traffic, right? And you can buy traffic on a CPM, where you pay on an impression, or a CPC, right? They're not running on a cost per lead, at least in my experience yet. But at the same time, you might be able to go to an email publisher who's running traffic on a performance basis, and they're willing to get paid on a click, a lead, or a sale, right? And you're ultimately going and having a conversation with them and convincing them why they should run it on the cost per lead, right? On the cost per acquisition. So, at the end of the day, no, all publishers aren't the same. All traffic is not the same. Every traffic, every click has a value. You just have to figure out what that value is and then make it work for you, your offer, and your advertiser.
Cool. All right, Justin says, is the true up where you factor in the scrub rate? Can you talk more about what that is?
Yes. Okay, so anybody that doesn't know what a scrub is, what it means is that you generate leads and then the advertiser does not deem it as a payable action. They're not giving you credit for it. This is why you always want to, look into their system on a daily basis and reconcile whatever it is that you're seeing on your side in your tracking system. So if you generate 1,000 leads and they're scrubbing 10% of those leads, that means that they're not paying you for 100 of those leads. Okay, so yeah, you're only going to be evaluating based off of what it is that's considered a payable action, so that you can look at what did you get paid, what did you pay out, okay? And then you're backing it out to the advertiser side of what happened with those leads on the back end. Did they convert any of those leads into sales? If they did, how many? What was the conversion rate? What did it back out to on how much did they spend? And what does it back out to how many sales they had? And that's going to show you what they're paying for every sale they get. And then does that align with their goals? Okay. I used to work with LifeLock. LifeLock used to give me it's funny. I used to work with LifeLock in a lot of different ways, and then they were merging with Norton Antivirus, and I worked with the affiliate department where they would pay me $50 for every time I got a trial sign up for their offer. But I also worked with another division where they gave me CPM email budget. So they gave me about $250,000, and what they would tell me is they needed me to get 1,000 sales for them. So 250,000 divided by 1,000 was $250 per sale, right? On the affiliate side, they were paying me $50 per sale, same offer. But on this group, they were giving me $250 allowable. The reason why they paid less in the affiliate world is because affiliate traffic at times had lower quality traffic and they could get away with it, right? So it's just different divisions. However, when I went out and bought traffic, if I went and spent $100,000 and I got 1,000 sales, guess what, guys? I did not spend a dollar. I made 150 grand net margin on that one, right? So when you guys are asking about margin, that's an insane deal, right? But I delivered what they wanted. So I was taking the risk. I figured it out. I was able to get them traffic that worked. So in that case, it was a home run, right? So
Okay, cool. So next choice is, I see a lot of micro influencers. You can pay 50 or $100 too. It seems hard to get much traction from a shout out and an audience of 50K.
it depends how much of an influence they have, right? Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, you could be, working an influencer, they can send it out. If they don't have a lot of engagement, it may not be that exciting. You really need to, when you're doing your Dream 100, you're really diving into it. Just because they have followers doesn't mean anything. You really want to look at what is their engagement rate, right? You want to understand, have they done this before? If they have, what did it back out to? What do they, when they send out, an offer to their audience, what happens? You're getting all this information to figure that out. And then also depends on how you're paying out. If you're paying on a cost per lead, yeah, it's your time to get the deal done. So, you have an opportunity cost, but you're not paying anything until they get you the lead, right? That's very different than if you're saying, hey, I'm going to pay you for, on a cost per 1,000. So if you have 1 million people that follow you, I'm going to pay you $10 cost per 1,000. You're going to spend 10 grand for them to go and do a shout out for you. Well, do the math and figure out how this is going to work and see, is this worth my while? Am I willing to take that risk? And then you have to make a decision. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's times where you can, get run over on those deals. So you got to be careful. You got to know your media. You got to know who you're working with.
Okay, we're going to answer just a couple more questions, and then we're going to jump into the Zoom room where we're going to do the media math sheet, and then he'll answer more questions after that. So let me just get through these last questions, and then let's jump into Zoom so we can do the following ones. Prosper said, will the advertiser give you those numbers in revenue? I'm not sure which numbers he's referring to. Maybe he said that earlier, but he also asked, so when you do the test, is that coming out of pocket?
Okay, so my guess is when you say, will the advertiser give you those numbers in revenue, either you're asking, do they tell you what the conversion is on the back end to figure out how much revenue they're generating? That's my guess of what you're asking. Or do they tell you what their goal is of what they're looking to back out each sale? And the answer is they should tell you what they're looking to back it out to, and they should show you the numbers. If they don't, then you're flying blind and you really can't do what you're supposed to do to help them. And at that point, you don't know if you're buying leads, but you don't know how it's converting on the back end. You have no idea if they're good or bad. So he's handcuffing you. She's handcuffing you if she's not giving you that information. There's no reason why they wouldn't give you that information, other than they might be crushing it on the back end. They don't want you to know that, and they're getting a sweetheart deal buying traffic from you. But the example we talked about where you're getting paid $10 a lead and you're generating, and they're generating 2 sales, and really the leads are valued at $20 and they're paying you 10, they don't want you to know that. So they don't want you to know that because they don't want to pay $10. They don't want to pay $20. They want to keep paying 10, right? And in that scenario, it's harder to scale with a company like that. But for the most part, yes, they should be telling you that.
Okay, and last question before we jump into the Zoom. Do you structure the contracts for a certain amount of time? Months, he's asking, or for amount of money paid to you or something else?
Yeah, good question. It depends on who you're working with. Usually you have a 48 business hour out no matter what, regardless of what you're willing to commit to. So, from an advertiser's perspective, they're going to give you a budget. or they're going to say, keep running unlimited. You're going to have that conversation. They might say, all right, we're going to buy 50,000 leads, or we're going to buy $100,000 in leads. Or they may say you can run unlimited, right? Uncapped. Well, there's more details to that. If they have 48 hours to stop the traffic, if they do, you need to stop within a period of time, right? If they hit you up on a Saturday, then you can have Monday and Tuesday to go and talk to people because everybody's, doing their thing on the weekends. But for the most part, some are unlimited, some have budgets, some have caps. It could be revenue, it could be leads. It works out to the same thing, really, at the end of the day. But a lot of the companies that will do it on unlimited, is because it's just an allowable, right? It's like for you guys, if you guys have an offer that's paying you $10 and you're out there and paying $7, and it literally, you're only paying $7 every time you get paid 10, what would your budget be? Can you guys tell me? How much budget, would you be willing to spend? If you can go out to the market and get somebody to run your deal and get paid $7 every time they generate a lead for you, but you get paid 10, how much money would you be willing to spend? Answer in here.
There's always like a 6-second delay. So just whenever you say something, it takes a minute before their responses come through.
How much would you be willing to spend?
Okay, Alex. There we go. Okay, good.
Okay, you guys are getting it, right? As much as you possibly can, right? Because you're profitable. Of course, you need to make sure that, you don't want to run up a bill of $14 million and then an advertiser can't pay you, right? So once you start getting into some of those numbers, it's a tricky question, right? Because you need to protect yourself in that scenario, because if you're starting to get that and you're generating a bunch of real revenue, you're going to want to get increased payment terms. You're going to want to be able to do that. And the publisher's probably going to say to you, hey, I want to send up to X amount of dollars, and they're going to run a credit check on you and work with you. They're not going to send $14 million for you until you start paying. So you just have that conversation. As long as the traffic's good, you go to your advertisers, you get them to pay sooner, and you pay out. Or if they can't pay sooner, then you just have to, pause the traffic. But you guys get it. So I'm glad you guys answered that the right way. Boom.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's jump into your actual Excel sheet where you're going to show the media math. Let me get the Zoom link for everybody really quick. I'll put it in here. I think you should have it on your email as well, but there it is. I just put it in the chat box. Do you want to just take a 5-minute break and jump right into that?
Sure.
Okay, so 5-minute break. There's a link, guys. Go in there. I'll put it one more time in that chat. It should also be in your email. Dana, if you can send that to everybody in Voxer as well, just so everybody has it, that would be great. So let's jump in there in about 5 minutes.
Sweet.
Cool.
All right, guys. Talk to you in a bit. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Later.